sys.stdin.readline and input, which one is faster when reading lines of input, and why? I'm trying to decide which one to use when I need to acquire lines of input from STDIN, so I wonder how I need to choose them in different situations. I found a previous post, this URL, saying that. How can I optimize this code in terms of time and memory used? Note that I'm using different function to read the input, as sys.stdin.readline is the fastest one when reading strings and input when reading integers. Is that statement true?
The built-in input and sys.stdin.readline functions don't do exactly the same thing, and which one is faster may depend on the details of exactly what you're doing. As Arwastant commented, the difference is less in Python 3 than it was in Python 2, when the quote you provide was from, but there are still some differences. The first difference is that input has an optional prompt parameter that will be displayed if the interpreter is running interactively. This leads to some overhead, even if the prompt is empty, the default. On the other hand, it may be faster than doing a print before each readline call, if you do want a prompt. The next difference is that input strips off any new line from the end of the input. If you're going to strip that anyway, it may be faster to let input do it for you, rather than doing sys.stdin.readline.strip. A final difference is how the end of the input is indicated. Input will raise an EF error when you call it if there is no more input, STDIN has been closed on the other end. Sys.stdin.readline, on the other hand, will return an empty string at EOF, which you need to know to check for. There's also a third option, using the file iteration protocol on sys.stdin. This is likely to be much like calling readline, but perhaps nicer logic to it. I suspect that while differences in performance between your various options may exist, they're likely to be smaller than the time cost of simply reading the file from the disk, if it is large, and doing whatever you are doing with it. I suggest that you avoid the trap of premature optimization and just do what is most natural for your problem, and if the program is too slow, where too slow is very subjective, you do some profiling to see what is taking the most time. Don't put a whole lot of effort into deciding between the different ways of taking input unless it actually matters.
As Lin1024 says, for reading large amounts of data, input is much slower. A simple example is this. This takes about 0.25 microseconds per iteration. Changing that to sys.stdin.readline.strip takes that to about 0.31 microseconds. Changing readline to input is about 10 times slower. Notice that it's still pretty fast though, so you only really need to worry when you are reading thousands of entries like above.
It checks if it is TTY every time as input runs by syscall, and it works much more slow than sys.stdin.readline this URL.